With election season approaching and political conversations popping up at work, family gatherings, and even online, it's always good to be prepared for the unexpected. Our next guest is a savvy lawyer who will help make sure you're ready for anything the season throws your way. Let's welcome Ramona Morgan. Hello, Ramona.
Hi, Desiree. How are you?
I'm doing good. All right, Ramona, let's talk about things don't always go as planned at the polls. So how can we prepare for unexpected issues like long lines or voter ID problems when we head out to vote?
Okay, so absolutely the best weapon is information. You should know what the rules are related to registration, be all prepared before you go. But then once you're there, make sure that you speak to someone who is at the poll. If you find that you're not registered, you're not being allowed to vote, speak up. There are many volunteers at polling locations, and they can register your issue and give you a provisional ballot if something comes up. But mostly, make sure you've got water, be hydrated, and then also look into alternate times like late times and advanced voting, or in early voting if you're able to do it.
It's good to know there's a lot of resources to help with that, like you mentioned, especially if people aren't registered to vote. And I mean, politics can really sneak up into the workplace, maybe when we're least expecting it. So, how can we handle those political conversations at work without creating any tension?
So one of the things that we value so much is free speech. In the workplace, it is good to temper what you're saying and what you're communicating with colleagues who might have very, very different points of view. And
Hmm.
people are very passionate all the time about elections, but particularly this year. So make sure that you're keeping, a professional demeanor, that you're talking about things related to work, and if possible, steer clear, particularly if you're being drawn into conversations you're not comfortable with.
All right, and then kind of pivoting off of that, so we mentioned at work, we've all had those family gatherings or even moments on our social media feed where differing political views, they come up, they catch us off guard. How can we navigate these moments without losing our cool?
It's funny. I feel a couple of different ways about this. On one hand, it's good to occasionally lose your cool in the sense that being passionate, expressing yourself can be really important. On the other hand, it's great to step back, particularly on social media, and thinking about it from a legal perspective. Many workplaces have social media policies in terms of
Hmm.
what you're saying and how it might somehow relate to where your place of work. So be thoughtful. A lot of these things are a permanent record. And then, we can always walk away from our computer,
Hmm.
take a break, come back, and think about what we want to say.
I like the idea of stepping away. And sometimes on social media, there's so many opinions being thrown around. You don't have to comment on everything. You know your political views. So a comment isn't needed for everything. What about for students, Ramona, or anyone who's recently moved? What's the best way to make sure you're still registered and prepared to vote before Election Day?
Okay, this is such a great question, Desiree. For a lot of students, they might want to register in the state where they're in school, or they might want to stay registered at home. So, on the legal side, there are a couple of things I'd like to note. So, if you're registered in two different places, and that might come up naturally because you've moved or you're in school, that's absolutely fine. That's not a problem. But absolutely do not vote in two different places. And particularly for students, be strategic. So, if your home state is Georgia or Pennsylvania, and you're in another state where you might feel your vote doesn't quite count as much, you might choose to vote in your home state. But either way, make sure that you know the rules. Go to vote.org. It has an excellent overview of all of the rules for each state, the deadlines for registration, and really make sure that you know that before it gets too close. We still have plenty of time to register.
Yes, I even noticed on social media outlets, they even have a tab where, hey, are you registered to vote? Click here so you can find out. So they're really making it easy so everyone can make sure they're registered before it's time to vote. And when it is time to vote and we get those results, election results can be unpredictable, especially in a tight race or with important propositions on the ballot. How can we
Right.
stay grounded and handle the outcome no matter which way things go?
So again, this is another great question, and we also have to think, what's the value of being grounded? We want to keep our heads cool, but we also think, these are really important issues. Some of them have to do with reproductive rights, some of them have to do with foreign policy, and if you're passionate about it and you find out that it hasn't gone the way that you want, absolutely use pen and paper, write your local representative, write the federal government, but channel that energy that you have productively into making and bringing about the changes that didn't come around this time that you really would like to see. but sometimes righteous indignation can be the greatest fuel.
Yeah.
And it's good to make your voice heard in a productive way.
There we go. Ramona getting us ready for election season. Always appreciate your time,
Yes,
Ramona.
yes, yes.
All right, to our viewers, you can find out more by going to RamonaMorgan.com.